The shocking catalyst. The colony of Novaterra was humanity's pride, a lush green planet orbiting a distant star, filled with hope and prosperity. Families had settled here to escape the crowded cities of Earth, and the future seemed bright. Among the settlers was young Ethan Carter, an 8-year-old boy with a heart full of curiosity. He was the kind of child who asked endless questions, loved exploring the woods near his home, and dreamed of flying among the stars. One fateful afternoon, Ethan wandered too far from the settlement while chasing a colorful butterfly. His parents had told him to stay close, but his adventurous spirit got the better of him. Unbeknownst to him, the area he entered was marked as restricted by the Galactic Empire. A faint shimmer in the air indicated an invisible boundary, a warning humans had been told never to cross. Ethan didn't understand the danger. To him, the tall, metallic obelisks he stumbled upon looked like alien art. He touched one, his small fingers tracing the strange symbols etched into its surface. The obelisk hummed, and within seconds, a loud, mechanical voice echoed in the clearing. Unauthorized life form detected. Initiating protocol. Back at the colony, alarms blared. The settlement's surveillance systems picked up the disturbance, and Ethan's parents, Sarah and James Carter, froze in terror. "Ethan," Sarah screamed, clutching her husband's arm. They ran toward the restricted zone, desperate to save their son. But they were too far. A sleek, black Imperial drone descended from the sky, its red lights flashing ominously. It hovered over Ethan, scanning him with cold precision. The boy looked up, his innocent eyes wide with confusion. "Hello. Are you a robot?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. The drone didn't answer. Instead, it emitted a sharp, high-pitched sound. Moments later, a beam of energy shot down, striking Ethan in the chest. The boy crumpled to the ground, lifeless. His butterfly net fell beside him, a cruel reminder of his innocence. The Carter family reached the scene moments later, only to be held back by an invisible force field. Sarah collapsed to her knees, wailing in anguish. James pounded on the barrier with his fists, shouting Ethan's name. Behind them, other colonists gathered, their faces pale with horror. A child, one of their own, had been executed in cold blood. The drone hovered silently for a moment, then projected a holographic message in the air. It bore the insignia of the Galactic Empire, a jagged crimson star surrounded by black void. The voice that followed was cold and mechanical. "Violation of Imperial territory is punishable by death. Let this serve as a warning to all humans. Compliance is mandatory." The message vanished, and the drone ascended back into the sky, leaving behind a heartbroken colony. Word of the incident spread like wildfire. Within hours, the footage of Ethan's death reached Earth. News anchors struggled to maintain composure as they played the harrowing video. Protests erupted across major cities, with crowds chanting, "Justice for Ethan," and "Never again." In the halls of power, Earth's leaders convened an emergency meeting. The United Earth Alliance, humanity's governing body, had long maintained a tense but passive relationship with the Galactic Empire. Humans were considered newcomers to the galaxy, a species the Empire tolerated but didn't respect. For years, Earth had avoided confrontation, choosing diplomacy over conflict. But this was different. This wasn't a border dispute or a trade disagreement. This was the murder of an innocent child, and humanity would not let it stand. Admiral Jonathan Hayes, a decorated war hero, stood at the head of the council table. His grizzled face was set in stone, his eyes blazing with fury. "They think we're weak," he said, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. "They think they can kill one of our children and walk away without consequences. They are wrong." The room fell silent as Hayes placed a small holoprojector on the table. It flickered to life, displaying a fleet of massive starships in formation. "This is Project Titan," Hayes announced. "For years we've been preparing for the day the Empire pushed us too far. That day has come." The leaders exchanged uneasy glances. "Admiral, One of them began cautiously. "Are you suggesting we go to war?" Hayes nodded. "Not just war. Retaliation. They took one child from us. We will show them the cost of their cruelty. For every life they take, we will answer with fire and steel." As the council debated, the people of Earth rallied behind the idea of justice. Ethan's face became a symbol of defiance, his story inspiring billions. Everywhere, humans spoke of unity, of standing together against the Empire's tyranny. Back on Novaterra, Ethan's parents stood at the edge of the restricted zone, holding hands. Sarah's eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady. "They took our son," she whispered, "but they won't take our hope. They won't take our future." The camera pans out, showing the grieving parents against the backdrop of a vibrant green world, a world that now burned with a collective desire for vengeance. The stage was set. Humanity's response would shake the galaxy to its core. The Galactic Empire's arrogance. While Earth grieved and prepared, the Galactic Empire barely noticed. To them, the execution of a human child was nothing more than a routine enforcement of their laws. The Empire's Central Council, known as the High Dominion, met on the capital planet of Celtraxis. Towering spires of black metal rose above the city, their ominous glow reflecting the iron rule of the galaxy's most powerful force. Seated at the head of the council was Emperor Kaler Thranis, a figure of immense authority and cold calculation. His violet skin glistened under the chamber's lights, his 4 eyes scanning the gathered advisors. "Report," he commanded, his voice deep and emotionless. A hologram flickered to life in the center of the room, showing an Imperial Admiral standing at attention. "Your Majesty," the Admiral began, "there has been minor unrest among the humans. They are displeased by our enforcement in one of their outer colonies." Kaler waved a hand dismissively. "Humans," he sneered, "primitive apes playing with technology they barely understand. Let them shout into the void. They will soon learn their place." One of the counselors, an elder named Lord Vrax, hesitated. "Your Majesty, reports suggest the humans are mobilizing. Their fleets are increasing in number. This could escalate." Kaler's gaze turned icy. "Escalate," he interrupted. "Against us. The Galactic Empire has ruled for over 1,000 years. No species has ever dared challenge our supremacy. Humanity is no different." The room fell silent, save for the hum of the hologram. Kaler's lips curled into a smirk. "Send a small detachment to remind them who commands the stars. A show of force will crush their defiance before it begins." Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity's leaders analyzed every move of the Empire. They knew the enemy underestimated them, and they intended to use that arrogance to their advantage. Behind closed doors, Admiral Jonathan Hayes briefed the United Earth Alliance's top officers. "The Empire thinks we'll roll over," he said, his tone sharp. "They think we're afraid, but they don't know what we've been building." Hayes gestured to a massive screen that filled the war room. It displayed schematics for a new generation of dreadnoughts, ships unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Each one was armed with experimental weaponry, advanced shielding, and the capability to operate independently for years. Their most frightening feature, eye-assisted targeting systems, capable of reacting faster than any organic pilot. "This is not just a fleet," Hayes continued. "This is a message. Every ship, every missile, every blast of plasma. They will know it came from Earth." The officers exchanged grim nods. Humanity's hidden strength was its ability to adapt, to innovate under pressure. For decades, they had studied the technology of other species, improving upon it in secret. What the Empire dismissed as primitive was, in truth, a silent revolution in warfare. Back on Celtraxis, the Empire's detachment prepared for deployment. Admiral Torva, a seasoned commander with a reputation for ruthless efficiency, oversaw the fleet. It consisted of 100 Imperial warships, small by the Empire's standards, but more than enough to intimidate most species. As the fleet prepared to depart, Torva received a final message from Emperor Kaler. The holographic figure loomed over her, his expression stern. "Do not return until the humans are brought to their knees," he ordered. "Burn their colonies if you must. Let them know the price of defiance." Torva saluted, a predatory grin spreading across her face. "It will be done, Your Majesty." The fleet launched with precision, their engines roaring like the cries of predators closing in on prey. Across the galaxy, they left trails of destruction in their wake, annihilating smaller human outposts to spread fear. Messages from survivors flooded Earth's communications networks, each one painting a grim picture of the Empire's cruelty. But humanity was not idle. Earth's fleet, the newly completed Project Titan, was ready for its first test. As the Imperial fleet neared Novaterra, Admiral Hayes gave the order. "Initiate Operation Retribution." The battle began in the dead of space, where the silence of the void was broken by the blinding flashes of weapons fire. Earth's dreadnoughts emerged from stealth, their sleek designs and dark hulls blending seamlessly with the cosmos. The Empire's ships, designed for intimidation rather than resilience, were caught off guard. Torva watched in disbelief as one of her cruisers exploded, ripped apart by a single human railgun. "Impossible," she hissed, her sharp claws digging into the armrest of her command chair. "These primitives shouldn't have this kind of firepower." Earth's fleet pressed the attack, their tactics precise and relentless. Each dreadnought moved like a predator stalking its prey, exploiting the Empire's overconfidence at every turn. The Empire's ships began to falter, their formation breaking under the weight of humanity's vengeance. As the battle raged, Admiral Hayes sent a single message to Torva's flagship. "This is only the beginning." Torva's fleet limped away from the battlefield, leaving behind smoldering wreckage and the shattered remains of Imperial pride. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire had suffered a defeat, and for the first time they realized humanity was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. On Earth, the victory was celebrated not with cheers, but with determination. The people knew this was just the first skirmish in a much larger war. Admiral Hayes stood before his officers, his voice steady and resolute. "The Empire will come for us with everything they have. But now, they know, we will not break." Humanity's message was clear. The galaxy would never underestimate Earth again. Earth's hidden strengths. The defeat of Admiral Torva's fleet sent shockwaves through the Galactic Empire, but on Earth, it was merely the opening act. In the aftermath of the battle, humanity wasted no time. The world's greatest minds, strategists, and engineers came together, united by a single goal: survival. Admiral Jonathan Hayes stood in the heart of Earth's most secret military facility, codename Erebus. The underground base, buried miles beneath the Arctic ice, was a labyrinth of laboratories, manufacturing lines, and command centers. It was here that humanity's most ambitious project, Titan Protocol, had been born. Dr. Elena Moreau, a brilliant but reclusive scientist, walked alongside Hayes. She carried a tablet displaying data that would have seemed like science fiction just decades ago. "Admiral, our advancements in energy manipulation are exceeding expectations. The Mark VI railguns can now fire projectiles at nearly twice the speed of light." Hayes nodded, his eyes scanning the facility as engineers worked tirelessly on the fleet. "What about the shields? The Empire's plasma weaponry is still a threat." Dr. Moreau gave a small, confident smile. "The experimental quantum deflectors are operational. They won't just absorb energy. They'll redirect it. Every shot they fire at us could become our weapon." Hayes allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to innovate, to adapt in the face of overwhelming odds. The Empire might have ruled the galaxy for a millennium, but they had grown complacent, relying on fear and overwhelming numbers to maintain their dominance. Earth, on the other hand, had turned desperation into ingenuity. Across the planet, Factories that once produced civilian goods were retooled for war. Massive orbital shipyards churned out dreadnoughts at an unprecedented rate. Each vessel was a masterpiece of human engineering, armed with cutting-edge weaponry and AI systems capable of processing millions of tactical scenarios in real time. One such ship, the Indomitable, was Earth's crowning achievement. Captain Nadia Reyes, a seasoned officer known for her unflinching resolve, was given command of the vessel. As she stepped onto the bridge for the first time, her crew snapped to attention. "At ease," she said, her voice steady. "This ship isn't just a weapon. It's a symbol. The galaxy thinks they can crush us. Let's show them what humanity is capable of." But Earth's preparation wasn't limited to technology. Hayes and his team knew that the war would be fought on many fronts: military, psychological, and political. To this end, Earth's diplomats reached out to species that had long suffered under the Empire's tyranny. The Galactic Empire had left a trail of resentment across the stars, and now humanity sought to turn that anger into alliances. Ambassador Raj Patel met with the Silurus, a race of aquatic beings whose homeworld had been strip-mined by the Empire. The meeting took place in a neutral system, aboard a station that shimmered like a diamond in the void. "You want us to join your war?" asked Counselor Vren, the Silurus leader. Her voice was melodic, but tinged with skepticism. "Do you understand what you're asking? The Empire will annihilate us." Patel leaned forward, his tone calm but firm. "They will annihilate you anyway. Whether it's now or a century from now, the Empire takes what it wants. But together, we can stop them. Humanity has already proven they're not invincible." Vren hesitated, her bioluminescent skin shifting colors as she considered his words. Finally, she said, "We will consider your proposal." Meanwhile, on the Empire's side, panic began to set in. The High Dominion convened an emergency session to discuss the unexpected resistance from Earth. Emperor Kaler Thranis was furious, his composure cracking for the first time in decades. "How is it," he roared, "that these humans, a species we deemed insignificant, managed to defeat one of our fleets?" Lord Vrax, the elder counselor, stepped forward cautiously. "Your Majesty, the humans have been underestimated. Their technology is advancing at an alarming rate. We must take this threat seriously." Kaler glared at Vrax, his 4 eyes narrowing. "Then we will crush them before they can grow stronger. Mobilize the Grand Armada." The Grand Armada was the pride of the Empire, a force so vast that its deployment was considered a declaration of total war. Hundreds of thousands of ships, armed with the Empire's most destructive weapons, began converging on Earth's sector. To the Empire, this was a show of overwhelming power, a warning to the rest of the galaxy not to defy their rule. But Earth was ready. As the Grand Armada approached, Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Resolve. The command deck was alive with activity, officers coordinating fleets, monitoring sensors, and preparing for what would undoubtedly be the largest battle in human history. Hayes addressed his crew, his voice calm but resolute. "The Empire believes they can intimidate us with their numbers. But we have something they don't. We have purpose. We fight not for conquest or greed, but for our survival, for our families, for our future. Remember this: every shot we fire, every life we save, is a step toward a galaxy free of their tyranny." The bridge erupted in cheers. The crew knew the odds were against them, but they also knew what was at stake. Humanity had been pushed to the brink, but now they stood united, stronger than ever. In the cold depths of space, Earth's fleet formed a wall of steel and fire, waiting for the Empire's arrival. As the first Imperial ships emerged from hyperspace, the battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy was about to begin. The Empire's first shock. The void of space near Earth was silent, but tension crackled like an electric storm. Humanity's newly constructed fleet stood in formation, its sleek dreadnoughts and cruisers gleaming like onyx against the backdrop of stars. Each vessel carried a message written in fire: Earth would not bow. The Galactic Empire's Grand Armada emerged from hyperspace in waves, their sheer number blotting out the stars. The Imperial ships were monstrous, their jagged silhouettes designed to inspire fear. At their center was the Obsidian Crown, a colossal flagship carrying Admiral Torva's successor, Supreme Commander Maelor Karras. Ruthless, cunning, and utterly devoted to the Empire, Maelor watched the human fleet on his holo display with cold disdain. "These ships," he sneered, "pitiful. They will crumble under the might of the Empire." The Imperial fleet advanced, confident in their superiority. To them, humanity's defiance was nothing more than a momentary irritation. They had crushed countless rebellions across the galaxy. This would be no different. On Earth's flagship, the Eternal Resolve, Admiral Jonathan Hayes stood at the command station, his hands clasped behind his back. His eyes were locked on the holographic display showing the incoming fleet. Despite the overwhelming odds, his expression was calm, almost serene. "Are the new defenses online?" Hayes asked. "Yes, sir," replied Captain Nadia Reyes, now second in command of the flagship. "Quantum deflectors are at full capacity. All dreadnoughts are standing by." Hayes nodded, his voice steady. "Good. Let's remind them why they should fear us." As the Imperial fleet closed the distance, the battle began. The silence of space was shattered by the eruption of energy beams, railgun slugs, and plasma bursts. Earth's fleet moved with precision, their tactics disciplined and adaptive. The Eternal Resolve fired the first shot, a railgun projectile traveling faster than light. It tore through an Imperial destroyer, splitting the ship in half before it even had time to react. The Empire's forces hesitated for a fraction of a second, stunned by the speed and accuracy of the attack. Maelor Karras narrowed his eyes. "Impressive," he muttered. "But one shot does not win a war. Crush them." The Imperial ships surged forward, firing in coordinated volleys. Massive beams of plasma arced toward Earth's fleet, but the quantum deflectors activated with a shimmering glow, redirecting the energy back at the attackers. Imperial cruisers disintegrated under their own fire, their arrogance turning into their downfall. The true shock came when Earth's fleet deployed their secret weapon, the Tempest Protocol. Dozens of smaller, autonomous ships emerged from hidden compartments within the Dreadnoughts. These drones were fast, nimble, and armed with cutting-edge AI. They swarmed the Imperial vessels like wasps, targeting weak points with ruthless efficiency. On the Obsidian Crown, Maelor Karras watched in disbelief as his ships began to falter. "What is this?" he demanded, slamming his fist on the command console. "They're primitives. How are they doing this?" A tactical officer replied nervously, "Commander, their technology. It's unlike anything we've seen. Their tactics are unconventional, unacceptable." Karras roared, "Send in the dreadnoughts. We will overwhelm them with sheer force." The Imperial dreadnoughts, massive warships bristling with weapons, moved to the front lines. Their size and firepower dwarfed even Earth's largest ships. Maelor grinned, believing this would turn the tide. But humanity had anticipated this move. Admiral Hayes gave the order, "Activate Project Hammerfall." Across the human fleet, specialized ships powered up enormous, experimental railguns known as planet breakers. These weapons were designed to crack planetary shields, but had been modified for ship-to-ship combat. The first shot from a planet breaker tore through an Imperial dreadnought. Its armor shredded as if it were paper. The explosion lit up the battlefield, a fiery testament to Earth's ingenuity. The Empire's forces began to falter. Their rigid formations, designed for intimidation rather than adaptability, struggled against Earth's dynamic strategies. The AI-driven drones disrupted communication lines, while Earth's advanced targeting systems exploited every weakness. On the bridge of the Eternal Resolve, Hayes watched the battlefield unfold with grim satisfaction. He knew this was only the beginning. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "Push forward. Show them no mercy." The human fleet advanced, their weapons firing in synchronized waves. The Empire's ships began to retreat, their captains desperate to escape the onslaught. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire was on the defensive. Maelor Karras refused to accept defeat. "Order all ships to hold their ground," he shouted, but his command fell on deaf ears as more Imperial ships were destroyed. Even the Obsidian Crown was forced to retreat, its shields barely holding against the relentless assault. As the last of the Imperial ships flowed into hyperspace, a cheer erupted across Earth's fleet. Humanity had not only survived, but had delivered a crushing blow to the galaxy's most powerful force. The battlefield was littered with the wreckage of Imperial pride, a silent testament to Earth's defiance. Admiral Hayes addressed his crew. "This was a victory," he said, his voice firm. "But the Empire will return, and they will be more dangerous than ever. This is far from over. Prepare for the next battle. Humanity's fight has just begun." Across the galaxy, news of the Empire's defeat spread like wildfire. For the first time, the galaxy's oppressed species saw hope. If humanity could stand against the Empire, perhaps they could too. And in the shadows of space, the Empire began to plan its revenge. The battle for Earth. The Galactic Empire's Grand Armada had tasted defeat, but they were far from beaten. Their retreat was not one of surrender but of recalibration. Hidden in the darkness of uncharted space, Supreme Commander Maelor Karras and his remaining fleet regrouped, preparing for a counterstrike. This time, the Empire would not rely on arrogance. They would come with overwhelming force and a thirst for vengeance. On Earth, the victory celebrations were short-lived. Humanity's leaders knew the Empire would return, and when they did, it would be with everything they had. Admiral Jonathan Hayes convened a high-priority war council aboard the Eternal Resolve. Holograms of Earth's top military minds and allied species flickered around the room. "They'll come for Earth," Hayes said, his tone grave. "Not just to defeat us, but to make an example of us. This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about showing the galaxy that tyranny can be fought and won." Ambassador Raj Patel chimed in, his hologram shimmering faintly. "The Solaris and other oppressed species are watching us closely. If we succeed here, they'll join our cause. If we fail, we'll be standing alone." Dr. Elena Morrow, humanity's chief scientist, leaned forward, her voice calm but firm. "Then we need to ensure we don't fail. Project Olympus is ready." All eyes turned to her as she revealed the culmination of humanity's technological prowess. Project Olympus was not just a fleet. It was an entire defense grid. Orbital stations bristling with weaponry, planetary shields capable of withstanding prolonged bombardment, and a network of AI-driven satellites designed to predict and counter enemy movements. Hayes nodded. "Then let's make Earth an impenetrable fortress." As preparations intensified, the Empire launched its invasion. Maelor Karras, now leading the Empire's most formidable fleet yet, initiated an all-out assault. Thousands of Imperial ships emerged from hyperspace around Earth, their sheer numbers creating a shadow over the planet. Leading the charge was the Oblivion Spear, a new super dreadnought equipped with a weapon that could shatter planetary shields in a single blast. From the Eternal Resolve, Hayes stood unshaken as the alarms blared. "All stations, engage the grid. We hold the line." Earth's defense grid roared to life. The orbital stations, nicknamed Heaven's Wrath, unleashed barrages of railgun fire and energy beams. The quantum deflectors shimmered across the planet's surface, absorbing and redirecting the first wave of the Empire's bombardment. Above, humanity's fleet moved with surgical precision, intercepting enemy formations before they could consolidate. Maelor Karras watched from the bridge of the Oblivion Spear. His expression was cold, his voice sharp as he barked orders. "Focus all firepower on the planetary shield. Break it, and Earth falls." The Super Dreadnought's weapon powered up, its energy core glowing ominously. A beam of concentrated plasma shot toward Earth, striking the quantum deflectors with a deafening crack. The shield wavered but held, the energy dispersing into the atmosphere like a shattered aurora. Hayes clenched his fists. Bring the Eclipse protocol online. Hidden within Earth's outermost orbital stations were massive energy-absorbing arrays. These arrays redirected the energy of the Empire's own attacks, channeling it back into powerful retaliatory strikes. As the Oblivion Spear charged for another shot, Earth's defense grid fired back, targeting the Dreadnoughts' weapon systems with devastating precision. The Super Dreadnought shuddered under the impact, its hull cracking like glass. On board, Maelor Karras gritted his teeth. Deploy the Vanguard. The Vanguard was the Empire's elite strike force, a fleet of smaller, faster ships designed to bypass defenses and wreak havoc on the ground. They swarmed Earth's atmosphere, aiming to disable key installations and break the planet's will to fight. But humanity was prepared. From hidden silos across Earth's continents, anti-aircraft systems erupted into action. Surface-to-space missiles streaked into the sky, locking onto the Vanguard ships with pinpoint accuracy. The skies above Earth became a deadly light show as the Vanguard was systematically dismantled. On the ground, civilians took refuge in fortified shelters while soldiers manned defensive positions. For the first time in history, humanity stood united, not as separate nations, but as one species defending their home. The battle raged for hours, each side refusing to yield. Maelor Karras, despite his frustrations, had to admit that humanity was proving to be a far greater challenge than he'd anticipated. So, the apes can fight, he muttered, watching as another of his cruisers exploded in the distance. But let's see how they handle this. He ordered the Oblivion Spear to target Earth's oceans. If we can't break their shield, we'll cripple their planet. The Super Dreadnought launched a series of seismic torpedoes designed to trigger massive tsunamis and disrupt Earth's ecosystem. The oceans churned violently as the torpedoes struck, sending towering waves toward coastal cities. Hayes watched the chaos unfold on the command screens. Activate the Leviathan Court, he ordered. From underwater bases, humanity's hidden submarine fleet emerged. These vessels, equipped with energy shields and advanced torpedoes, intercepted the seismic weapons before they could cause irreversible damage. The oceans roared in defiance, but Earth held strong. As the battle neared its climax, Hayes made a daring decision. Target the Oblivion Spear. If we take it down, the rest will fall. The Eternal Resolve led a coordinated strike against the Empire's flagship. Earth's fleet swarmed the Super Dreadnought, bombarding it from all sides. The Oblivion Spear retaliated with everything it had, but it was no match for humanity's determination. In a final, desperate move, Maelor Karras attempted to ram the Eternal Resolve. If I'm to die, he growled, I'll take their leader with me. But Hayes was ready. Deploy the Titan cannons. The Eternal Resolve unleashed its most powerful weapon, a concentrated energy blast that pierced the Oblivion Spear's core. The Imperial flagship erupted in a fiery explosion, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The remaining Imperial ships, leaderless and demoralized, began to retreat. Earth had won the battle for Earth. Humanity celebrated, but not with arrogance. They knew this victory was only the beginning. Admiral Hayes addressed the fleet. The Empire has seen what we're capable of. But this war isn't over. We've defended our home. Now, we take the fight to them. And so, humanity prepared for the next phase of the war, a war that would decide the fate of the galaxy. The Empire's fall. The destruction of the Oblivion Spear and the retreat of the Empire's Grand Armada marked a turning point, but humanity knew the war was far from over. While Earth's defenses had held, Admiral Jonathan Hayes and his team understood the need to press their advantage. The time had come to take the fight to the Empire's heartland. On board the Eternal Resolve, Hayes stood before his senior officers. A holographic map of the galaxy rotated above the table, highlighting Celtraxis, the Empire's capital planet. "This is where we strike," Hayes said, his voice steady. "The Empire has ruled through fear for centuries. It's time to break that rule. Captain Nadia Reyes raised an eyebrow. Celtraxis, the most heavily fortified world in the galaxy. That's a suicide mission. Hayes met her gaze, unwavering. It's a calculated risk. Without Celtraxis, the Empire will crumble. Their fleets will scatter, their leaders will fall into disarray, and their grip on the galaxy will be shattered. Dr. Elena Morov stepped forward, her expression thoughtful. We'll need something extraordinary to breach their defenses. The planetary shield surrounding Celtraxis is unlike anything we faced. Hayes smirked faintly. That's why we've been working on the Apotheosis Protocol. The room went silent. The Apotheosis Protocol was humanity's ultimate weapon, a project shrouded in secrecy even among Earth's highest ranks. It was said to be capable of dismantling even the most advanced defenses. Dr. Moreau nodded. It's ready, but using it will come at a cost. The energy output alone. We'll handle it, Hayes interrupted. We have no other choice. As Earth's fleet prepared for its most daring mission yet, the Empire was reeling. On Celtraxis, Emperor Kaler Thranis paced the opulent throne room of the High Dominion. The once proud ruler, whose voice had commanded legions, now found himself surrounded by advisors who whispered of failure. Your Majesty, began Lord Vrax, the elder counselor, humanity's victory at Earth has emboldened the galaxy's lesser species. Uprisings are spreading like wildfire. The outer colonies are falling. Kaler's violet skin darkened with rage. Then crush them. Deploy every fleet, every weapon. Show them the price of defiance. Vrax hesitated. Your Majesty, our fleets are scattered, and the humans, they are advancing. Kaler's eyes narrowed. Advancing? Where? Before Vrax could answer, an alarm blared. A holographic display lit up, showing a vast fleet of human dreadnoughts emerging from hyperspace near Celtraxis. At the center of the formation was the Eternal Resolve, its dark hull gleaming like the edge of a blade. The battle for Celtraxis began with a ferocity the galaxy had never seen. The Empire's defensive fleet, though vast, struggled against Earth's superior tactics and technology. The Apotheosis Protocol was unveiled in the form of a single massive ship, the Ascendant Fury. Larger than any dreadnought, it carried a weapon capable of disrupting energy fields on a planetary scale. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the Eternal Resolve, his gaze fixed on Celtraxis. Bring the Ascendant Fury into position, he ordered. We need to take down that shield. The Ascendant Fury moved into place, flanked by squadrons of fighters and cruisers. The Empire's forces converged on it, desperate to stop the activation of the Apotheosis Protocol. Waves of Imperial ships crashed against Earth's fleet, but humanity held the line. Dr. Moreau's voice crackled over the comms. We're ready to fire, but this is going to drain half our power reserves. We'll be vulnerable. Hayes nodded. Do it. A pulse of energy erupted from the Ascendant Fury, spreading like a ripple through space. The planetary shield surrounding Celtraxis flickered, then collapsed in a cascade of light. The Empire's strongest defense was gone. On Celtraxis, chaos erupted. Citizens who had long lived under the Empire's iron rule now saw a chance for freedom. Rebel groups, emboldened by Earth's attack, began to rise up within the city's sprawling districts. Emperor Kaler watched the chaos from the throne room, his fury boiling over. How dare they? He bellowed. I will not be overthrown by these primitives. But his words were drowned out by the sound of explosions. Earth's ground forces, having breached the planet's defenses, landed in coordinated strikes. Among them were elite squads of human soldiers and allied rebels, fighting side by side. The final confrontation came when Admiral Hayes led a team into the High Dominion itself. The corridors of the palace were a labyrinth of opulence and danger, guarded by the Empire's most loyal soldiers. But humanity's forces pushed through, their determination unshakable. In the throne room, Hayes confronted Emperor Kaler, who stood with a ceremonial blade in hand. You dare invade my world? Kaler snarled, his four eyes blazing with rage. You will never defeat the Empire. Hayes raised his weapon, his voice cold. Your empire is already dead. You just don't know it yet. The two clashed in a brief but fierce battle, Kaler's strength and speed surprising for a being of his age. But in the end, Hayes prevailed. With a single, decisive strike, the reign of Emperor Kaler Thranis ended. As the sun rose over Xeltraxis, the galaxy witnessed the dawn of a new era. The Empire's defeat sent ripples across the stars. Oppressed species overthrew their rulers, inspired by humanity's courage. Earth, once considered insignificant, became a symbol of hope and resilience. Admiral Hayes addressed the galaxy in a broadcast from the High Dominion. We did not fight for conquest or power. We fought for freedom. For a galaxy where no one lives in fear. Today, the Empire has fallen. Tomorrow, we build something better. Together. A new galactic era. The Galactic Empire had fallen. Its once unchallenged dominance reduced to fractured remnants scattered across the stars. On Xeltraxis, where the Empire's banners once flew, the streets were alive with celebration. Species from every corner of the galaxy, once oppressed and voiceless, now walked freely, their chains broken. But for humanity, the true challenge was only beginning. Victory in war was one thing. Building a peaceful galaxy was another. Admiral Jonathan Hayes stood on the balcony of the former Imperial Palace, now converted into the headquarters of the newly formed Galactic Coalition. Below, the plaza thronged with beings of every shape and size. Humans, Silaris, Vrake, and others who had joined the fight for freedom. They looked up at him with hope, their collective future resting on what he would say next. Hayes took a deep breath, his words measured but powerful. Today, we stand together, not as conquerors, but as equals. We have proven that tyranny can be defeated, that even the most fearsome empires can fall. But our work is not done. The galaxy needs unity, trust, and a commitment to justice. It needs us, all of us, to ensure that the darkness of the past does not return. The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices a tapestry of languages and tones. For the first time in generations, they felt something many had forgotten: hope. Behind the scenes, the task of rebuilding was anything but simple. The Galactic Coalition, led by representatives from humanity and allied species, worked tirelessly to restore order. Former imperial territories had devolved into chaos, with warlords and remnants of the Empire vying for control. Dr. Elena Moreau, now head of the Coalition's Science Division, oversaw the dismantling of the Empire's oppressive technologies. Factories that once built weapons of destruction were repurposed to produce food and medical supplies. We're not just rebuilding worlds, she explained to her team. We're rebuilding trust. Ambassador Raj Patel spearheaded diplomatic efforts, reaching out to species that had remained neutral or hostile during the conflict. In one pivotal meeting with the enigmatic Geran Collective, a reclusive race of telepaths, Patel made a compelling case for unity. The Empire ruled through fear and division, he said, his tone earnest. We ask for something different, not allegiance, but cooperation, a galaxy where no voice is silenced. The Geran leader, a shimmering figure of light and thought, considered his words before responding telepathically. You have shown courage in battle, but wisdom is what will unite us. We will join your coalition. Despite the progress, not everyone was ready to embrace the new era. Scattered Imperial loyalists launched guerrilla attacks, determined to reclaim their lost power. Among them was a shadowy figure known only as the Revenant, a former Imperial admiral who vowed to restore the Empire. On the outskirts of the galaxy, a coalition fleet intercepted one of the Revenant's strongholds. Captain Nadia Reyes, now commanding her own ship, led the assault. The battle was fierce, but the coalition forces prevailed, capturing key operatives and dismantling a major supply network. Reyes reported back to Hayes with a mix of pride and caution. We won today, but there's more out there. They won't go quietly. Hayes nodded. Then we won't stop. The fight for peace is just as important as the fight for freedom. On Earth, life was changing too. The war had brought humanity to the forefront of galactic politics, but it had also left scars. Families who had lost loved ones began the long journey of healing. Memorials to the fallen were erected across the planet, their names etched into stone and starlight. One such memorial stood in Novaterra, the colony where the war had begun. A statue of young Ethan Carter, the child whose tragic death had sparked humanity's defiance, was unveiled. His smiling face, cast in bronze, looked up toward the sky. Sarah and James Carter, Ethan's parents, stood hand in hand before the statue. Tears streamed down their faces, but there was also a glimmer of pride. "He didn't die in vain," Sarah whispered. "He gave the galaxy a reason to fight." As the First Galactic Assembly convened on Celtraxis, the Coalition began drafting a new charter. It was a document of unprecedented scope, designed to ensure freedom and equality for all sentient life. Hayes, Vattel, and representatives from dozens of species debated every clause, determined to get it right. One of the most contentious issues was the treatment of former imperial worlds. Some argue for harsh punishments. Others call for forgiveness. In the end, Hayes spoke from the heart. "If we want a lasting peace," he said, "we must lead by example. Justice, yes, but also compassion. The cycle of vengeance must end here." The charter was finalized, and its signing became a historic moment. Representatives placed their signatures, or the equivalent for their species, on a shimmering crystal tablet, binding their worlds to a shared vision of peace. The story ends with a quiet but powerful scene. Admiral Hayes, now retired, visits Ethan Carter's statue in Novaterra. The colony has been rebuilt, its streets bustling with life. Hayes places a small medal at the statue's base, a token of gratitude and remembrance. A child, no older than Ethan had been, approaches him. "Are you the hero who saved us?" The child asks, wide-eyed. Hayes kneels, his voice soft. "I didn't save anyone alone. It was all of us, working together." As the child smiles and runs off, Hayes looks up at the stars. The galaxy was far from perfect, but it was moving forward, and for the first time, it felt like a galaxy worth fighting for.